do our little intro. Cool. You guys ready?
Perfect.
Sweet. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of FLINT Talks. For those of you watching this recording, you might see two very familiar faces on screen. Today, I'm joined by one of the original founders of FLINT, as well as one of the original founders of FLINT Talks. So I'm the young one, I guess, in FLINT in this conversation. But yeah, I'd love to pass it to the guys to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they've been up to since we last might have seen them.
Yeah, you go first, man. Well, I thought the original founder of Flint would make the first talk, but I can start. Misha and we formed together and we created an AI agency called Harnex AI, and this was largely due to a deep passion of the technology and how much we saw it transforming, like knowledge work. And we started learning and playing with the tools, and it just eventually became very clear that this is something that New Zealand businesses need through education and guidance. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. Actually, Misha sat me down one day. He's like, well, you want to make this a company? And I was like, damn, you know what? Let's do it. And since then, it's been quite a ride, and we'll go through all of that. But that's like the very high level cliff notes. And yeah, I'm so grateful to see the Flint Talk still continuing on. And I basically stepped down from the role early this year because of, running a startup is enough in its own. And it's awesome to see the work you're doing, Caitlin, as also a co-founder of Flint Talk. So great stuff.
Oh, thanks, Derek. Um, yeah, just thinking about, I guess, when you left us then, that would have been probably the very last time we had a super technical conversation on Flint Talks. And I mean, just looking at the episodes we've done recently, they've all been quite soft skill based, more people focused. So it was definitely time to have a more technical episode again. Our last AI episode was towards the start of 2024. So maybe if you guys can, do you want to have a little bit of a chat about what might have changed in the AI landscape? I mean, since then might be a bit too hard, but maybe in the past
Massive.
few months.
Yeah, and I think like later as well, it'd be awesome to go through our story of why we formed it, because I think a lot of the similarities still exist. Like businesses are still struggling the same as they've been struggling for 2 years, but like the capability is exponential, right?
Yeah, I probably actually would, want to touch base on a bit of like a background, the whole purpose as to why we did it, right? Like where it's all originated, because I think it's going to set like quite a great like, foundation on, why we continue doing this and sort of like the challenges we're encountering on a day-to-day basis, and hence probably why like when we're going to do a bit of a deeper dive, just looking at the last month is going to be sufficient.
It's too much, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, to Derek's point, it all originated because of our common passion, right? The GPT got released, and next thing you know, both of us on our own accord, on an individual basis, saw a massive potential behind it, right? And to be honest, like this sort of technology put AI into the whole new, you know, visible spectrum kind of thing. So because before nobody would probably be paying as much attention to it, but what OpenAI did is they just made this technology like easily digestible, accessible, and all of a sudden it was just like commercialized products. So of course, like it started gaining hype because it was um so easily available. So we started playing around with it, going back and forth, and then sort of started running into each other like on different events. You'd be talking about like Flint, 2N, some other, events hosted by like Ericsson's, and we just randomly started talking, learning of each other, and sort of suggesting like, hey, have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? And what happens, like all of a sudden, like we're operating as a sort of like a collective kind of mind, the learnings growing, and geometrical progression, it's not something that we have to struggle with and actually just try to do it ourselves. Now we're actually working as a team. And I think probably like 6 months in, the sort of information that we're exchanging back and forth, it was so I would say actually advanced compared to the average user. That what most people are just starting out with, it was not as necessarily
Power user.
like yeah, we wouldn't even consider that being as a power user. So we started learning and more and more bouncing the ideas, and at that stage we thought like, damn, we're actually accelerating our learning so quickly that maybe it would be worthwhile teaching it to others, because once we started showing our tips and tricks to others, and at that time both of us were working in New Zealand, people were actually, you know, quite amazed with what this technology can do. So we started, showing tips and tricks, and next thing, yeah, we decided that we actually potentially take it to a different scale, right? And thought, yeah, we're going to form Harnex.
And that was just with large language models, ChatGPT's lowest capability model. Since then, we are now reaching a stage of really powerful models that can build a code, it can write anything you want comprehensively in a very human way if you prompt engineer. There's so many features, so much capability that is increased. And even doing this full time, it's so hard to keep up on top of things. So I'd love for you to guide us, Caitlin, on which things would you like to know? Because we could hit one of these topics and talk for 20 minutes, and that would just waste this whole recording. So you gotta point to us. What AI do you want to know? What's the audience that would get the most value out of it, right?
Yeah, so thinking about the people that are probably listening to this episode, they're much more likely to be on the just using ChatGPT, maybe a little bit of Gemini, depending on, if they're a Microsoft workspace or not. But I doubt they'll be doing anything crazy, no vibe coding, nothing like that. But so maybe, what's come out in the last couple of months that might change a introductory user to AI's life a little bit. If that's an easy question to answer, who knows?
Yeah, I think the biggest value unlock that is across every industry, across every role, doesn't matter what skill level you are, is the fact that you can now do generative AI search, which is completely taking over the traditional methods of Google. So if you're a user that is going to Google, naturally prompting, going through a bunch of articles, most of it SEO gamed and optimized, so you're not even getting the right article that you need. Then you read and comprehend and try and piece these information together. You're wasting your time because there's other competitors out there that are using generative AI tools that are instantly getting that information because AI is going and searching all the web articles and surfacing it in a very easily generative AI summary. And you can even go and like look at the links, right? And we've been doing it for like what 2 years, like ever since the first release of a tool named Perplexity. But since then, ChatGPT have released their search feature, Gemini have released their search feature, Claude have released their search feature. Every AI model now comes with this ability to do web search or deep research. And honestly, a large majority of our like information and how we process and consume is like AI deep research or AI web search.
With of course the sort of like the human in the loop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You can't let it go, kick it off and let it do whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about like being healthy skeptic when it comes to this technology. Trust but verify. It definitely saves a lot of time, and it sets the right path and like gives you the right focus. But always, try and verify whatever it is that's generating.
Yeah, 100%. It's at the end of the day, you're the expert, you're the human. AI, I have this perfect quote that I love to reuse all the time. AI is like a great intern, perfect recall, terrible judgment. The judgment comes from you being an expert, understanding the human relationships, understanding the complexities of whatever you're dealing with, and you having weathered the storm, you worked through the tough stuff or whatever you did to get into the position that you are. That is your judgment, right? AI doesn't have that. It's just a culmination of everything online. surfaced together and regurgitated, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, even just looking at a Google search, right? Like so many of them now, you pop up with the AI overview at the top, and it's kind of a combination of some of the top articles, and it's got the links on the side. I guess going back to trusting your judgment, what would you say is an easy way to check if something is accurate? Or, is it getting more accurate over time? Like, is there going to be a point where, maybe we can just trust what it tells us?
Really good question. Yeah.
Yeah. I have my method of doing that. Whenever some of these tools come out or the new research is available, is always try to work in a domain that you're very familiar with. So say you have a good understanding of the data, the market you're working in, and literally using these tools to actually verify this information. So always work in the domain that's familiar to you, just to check, the sanity of these tools, right? Some tools, like for example, what I like Perplexity, for example, right? Like you actually have these like dedicated things like spaces that where you can actually specify, like the trusted sources that you wanted to go through. But yeah, probably work with something that you're familiar with, and once you actually check that the information that's actually generated is relatively accurate, that's when I think
Yeah.
it's at that moment it's gonna build trust.
Yeah, to add to that, it's benchmarks online are all sales and marketing tactics. So if you are seeing an AI model hitting 98% or 88% on math, human benchmarks, agent benchmarks, they're all lies. They're all being gamed, and it's purely just to win this AI arms race. The only real test of whether an AI model is really good for your work is work within your domain, have an example or a piece of work that you do, takes maybe, I don't know, whatever amount of time. You've done that and you know how it works through and throughout without AI. Now go and do that same task with AI and see how much it accelerates a lot of the tedious work that you've already previously done and see the areas where it just misses the mark, right? And that is your way to pick the patterns of where AI will hallucinate, where to check and verify. And a lot of these systems will follow the same thing. So then you apply that same concept in a domain that you're not familiar with. Those same patterns exist. It's like, oh, yeah, maybe I need to double check. Maybe done hallucination here. Where's the source that it recommended here? But it changes the workflow, but this workflow is far better than the tedious manual work of the previous days. And if you're not adopting this workflow, then your competitors are, and they're going to move faster.
Yeah, and
Oh,
this is, to be honest, that's how, that's what Derrick does to reach his ikigai, as you like to say.
I love it. The ikigai concept, I've always been saying that for the past 2 weeks. But yeah, I saw you were going to ask a follow-up question,
oh,
Caitlin.
yeah. It's just so funny that that's exactly what you went to because with my master's I'm doing at the moment, I'm currently doing a digital business paper, and obviously encompassing that is a lot of how to use AI, how to use it in academia well, without being classified as cheating and all that jazz. And one of our assignments was actually to, answer a question ourselves completely without AI and then do it with AI, starting with a basic prompt and then taking what it spat out and actually prompting it more to give you a more accurate answer. And what I found in that was that the biggest spot that it messed up on was the references it used.
Yeah.
A lot of it, it was referencing information from articles that existed, but the ones that it told me it was referencing were not the articles that it was
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
using at
Yeah.
all. And so when I actually went and looked at it, I was like, okay, so all the information it's given me in like the body text is actually correct. It's just like put a conglomeration of
Exactly.
random references in the bottom that sort of apply, but that's not where that quote's from. It's not even that author, a whole bunch of stuff like that. So I definitely found that, okay, if I'm using it for research of any kind where I need to show references, I'm
Yeah.
going to need to check all of those every time.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was trying to validate whatever it is you were asking in a way and confirm whatever it is that you're searching for?
A little bit, yeah. Definitely when I just did the simple prompt where I didn't say, use real references and put them in API style at the bottom and all that jazz, it kind of was just like, cool, I got them from these articles. And when I clicked on them, one of them didn't even exist, and a couple of others went to different articles completely, or by the same author, but slightly different topics, that kind of thing. And then when I prompted it a bit more and said, I needed an API style, I need them to be real references in the past 5 years from authors that have worked at a Auckland University or a New Zealand university, then it was a bit more accurate, but it still was a bit jumbled in the information it gave me.
Yeah, you're touching on a perfect example of like the complications and the complexity of adopting AI, right? And this is the fundamental reason on why we created the service of generative AI mentoring for businesses, because when they have a specific domain level and they have BAU that they need to work on, it's almost impossible for them to know what feature exists, what model is best, what the differences between the different engineering methods that all these AI platforms take that may or may not increase the accuracy significantly. And so just in that top level of what you just told me, Caitlin, I'm asking a bunch of questions to myself. What model did you use? What feature did you use? What platform did you use? Like it's
Can I take a wild step when I say you use ChatGPT for doing that, right?
That's because that's what we were told to use, yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, sorry to hear it.
So just right there, right? Like there's so much and it's very hard to know what is the right one. So what I think there's different platforms and tools out there. And so for a person that isn't able to like come consult an AI agency that's working on this, I would just recommend like just be open to other things. ChatGPT is great as a large language model, but when it comes to searching for references, there are things like Perplexity, which tell you exactly where it referenced the line. And so it's so much easier to verify sources when you use a platform like that. There's also Gemini Deep Research that does the same thing at such a more like complex, not complex, more like in-depth way, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's all these other like platforms and tools
Like
that,
Claude for natural
yeah.
writing style.
And so there's things you can switch and choose, but unfortunately, if you're in an environment where it'll only allow you to use ChatGPT, then even within there's a huge amount of unlock. Like figure out what are the different models used for. I bet you no one has even like clicked that top down of selecting a different model. They probably just only prompted in GPT 4.0.
Yep.
And just to give, it's that in itself is a massive amount of like hallucination reduction, better, formatting, better output, like, just in that itself. And then, yeah, we could go, the way we could like, tunnel dive into so many of this. So let's stop it there. And but
Yeah,
you
I've been just on that point. Yeah, we've started using Gemini at work because we're a Google workplace. It's in our plans, and even just you ask the same question in ChatGPT versus in Gemini, and the output it gives you is so different. And I have found that Gemini is so much better for reviewing and offering ways to improve presentations or documents that I've written, that kind of thing, where ChatGPT is much better at, rewriting something in a different style or that kind of thing where it's not necessarily needing to actually analyze what I've given it. It's just going, oh, you've written it in quite a formal style. You want it less formal. I can
Yeah,
adjust that for you.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what we found as well with the deep research, through Google. Once it understands what it is exactly that you want, the way it presents it is so human-centered. So it's actually built and created for human consumption. It's phenomenal.
Like just reading,
Just it feels
because if verification is the new workflow that you have to adopt with AI, you want to be able to like read the output and like have some sort of like, oh, you're doing well, and not like feel like it's a robotic bunch of AI slop, right? Like so Google and Claude does that a lot better than what ChatGPT we've experienced.
Yeah, and on the note of Google, right? Like, I don't know what's been happening, but they were a bit slow to start with. To be honest, like I actually almost lost hope in Google because I was placing my bets in them. But just during my lowest of the low moment for them, they just tend to release this amazing new features, like for example, Notebook LM.
I don't know if
Right?
you've tried that,
Have you tried it?
Caitlin.
I haven't. No, I've seen it though.
Yeah, phenomenal. So you take any deep research,
Or just any text,
or
really,
any,
any resource. What
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah, paste the text in, and it like actually converts it into this beautiful podcast, that you can listen to on your commute, while, like observing or like doing the great sightseeing when you're like on the bus, train, or just, sitting in traffic.
It's great. Sometimes I even as a workflow internally, I'm like, oh, yo, I've just analyzed this like report or this article, and then I chuck it in Notebook LM. I generate a podcast. He's like, just go listen to this for 5 minutes.
Mm.
I don't even tell him to go read it. I'll just go listen to
Yeah.
this thing that I've generated for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. And how does that go? Is it very Americanized in the way it talks, or have we got some New Zealand accents in there?
Unfortunately, yes, it's only American accents. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been using a lot of like voiceover options in some of the courses and things we've been building, and finding an AI text to voice that has a good New Zealand or Australian accent has been challenging to say the least.
I'll tell you one, but unfortunately, it's really expensive. Like compared to all of the other offerings that are so much infinitely cheaper, the 11 Labs does New Zealand accents, and
Nice.
they do it
Mm,
pretty well. Like I was like, oh, this is I
mm,
wouldn't tell.
mm.
I would actually couldn't even tell, yeah, if it was like a real person or not.
Yeah. But you know what, to be honest, I would love to listen to a podcast that either is in a very aggressive, like Arnie voice, or just like a very soothing Morgan Freeman, like
You'll need two modes.
people like, yeah, aggressive Arnie or soothing Morgan.
I definitely think that I would listen to so many more podcasts if I could choose the specific voice that they were in. That's one of the reasons I struggle with podcasts so much. And, people say this about my voice too, and I completely understand. But, you start listening to something and someone's just got an annoying voice and you just
Mm,
cannot keep listening to it. That's where I get stuck with podcasts a lot. And I struggle to understand what is going on because I'm just so fixated on the way they say a specific word or the phrasings that they use or how many times they say like in a sentence.
It's
Whereas, yeah,
everything.
if I could switch
Yeah.
it to another voice, I would love it so much.
I mean, there's this, you're also touching on this whole like movement, another one that's happening. We talked about what's happening in the AI space. Another huge one is voice agents. And so it's completely changing your modality of interacting with an AI,
yeah.
right? Originally, you're typing on a keyboard and you're, prompt engineering and it's largely text-based, hence the word large language model, right? And that's ChatGPT and all of the things that you already know. But there's a huge amount of generative AI that we haven't talked about that is just pure voice, real-time voice interaction. And there's also like, moving away from it, image and video and music and audio generation from various different ways. But
Mm,
like if we just even touch voice agents, a massive, huge uptake that's happening is this almost like friendship therapy that's happening with a voice agent. Did you know that the second most like utilized AI chat platform after ChatGPT? I'm just gonna give you an example. I, I'm gonna give you a attempt to stab in the dark, Caitlin. I think I prefaced it significantly, but like you just imagine what do you know what platform it could be?
Oh gosh. I want to say like if it was up to me, it'd be like Duolingo or something, surely, but I don't something that talks to you by the sounds of things.
Yeah, it is something that talks to you. It's have you heard of the thing called character AI?
No. Am I
So
behind the
character AI.
times? Or maybe I'm too old for this.
No, no, it's okay. It's like unfortunately, it's even past our generation, Caitlin. It's the alpha and the beta generations that are using this. Not even Gen Zs.
mm,
It's literally the most like if you think about ChatGPT, an average session time is 15 minutes. On character AI, it's 2 hours
Wow.
average. So there's people on here chatting with this thing for 8 hours. And simply what character AI is a bunch of AI characters that you can talk to. You can talk to any character you can think of. And even if it's an inanimate object, you can talk to it. There's all of these like AI agents that have been created, and these kids are going and having full-on friendships and relationships with these things.
Which presents like a but massive problem for, you know, the future generations as well, right? It's like
Yeah.
how to keep the balance, you know, how do we maintain a balance and keep, you know, that human engagement, human connectivity,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and then you just think about how much screen time that must be meaning that they're having if they're having conversations for hours and hours and hours. And are they going outside to play? Are they, interacting with people in real life? Is there any, parents keeping an eye on what they're talking about? Like that is worrying almost.
Yeah, it's a side that is unfortunate. I think it's a culmination of both this loneliness epidemic that all of the younger generation are going through.
Mm.
It's much harder to make social connections, even if you like go and commute on a bus, you can see how glued everyone is to their external organs on their phones and devices. And it's like, back in the day when you hear probably from your parents or your grandparents, they're like, oh, I made friends at the supermarket or
Yeah.
the commute, or like we just walked in and people approached us,
Or you just ask them how they met.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
my dad literally stole my mom from some other guy and told him to take a walk, and that's it. Just back in the 90s.
Those type of things don't happen anymore.
No, no.
I mean, for that good reason, but like, other things, it's harder. And so
Yeah.
people are finding confidence in these
Mm.
AI models
Yeah.
that are sycophantic. Have you heard that term? Yeah, they'll gas you up as if I'm talking to any alpha or beta generations,
Mm.
an AI that will constantly gas you up the whole
Yeah.
time and not say anything wrong against you, which is the opposite of a good relationship. Like, gosh, the amount of times I'm arguing with Misha and we're debating over things like is more times than we're like lovey-dovey, but like that is what makes our co-foundership amazing, right? Like it's that
You literally pissed me off this morning.
Yeah, yeah. It is what it is, right? Like but this is
Yeah.
a good relationship, right? You got to have that conflict.
But then again, you know, I think it also depends on the like at you know, at more like at a human, like it's a human nature, right? So there are those that are seek challenges and you know they want to grow. And there's also a case where sometimes people just want some, you know, confirmation bias. You know, they've got a point of view and they just want to confirm it. They don't want to challenge it. You know,
Yeah.
and unfortunately it's sometimes it could be an easy way out, you know, and it's just a short affirmations.
Yeah, it's a complex one.
Yeah, I mean, it just raises so many like psychological questions about what the future of interacting in real life is going to look like. Are we all just going to tell our character to talk to another character and then they'll have the conflict and we don't have to do anything about it until the decision is made? Or, it's too much of a conversation to have right now. Um, I do want to switch tack a little bit and kind of
Yes.
probably have this as the last topic, but I mentioned it earlier, and I want to get your thoughts, opinions about vibe coding because
Ooh.
it's come up a lot in conversations that I've been a part of, not necessarily that I've been having because AI is not my forte. But just working in a software company with a team of developers, it's popped up. We've heard horror stories about people, getting AI to write code that works the first time and then never works again. And I'd love to know if you think it's something that is actually going to take over actual developers, whatever you think about it at all.
Well, how about this? Because we both vibe code. Well, he's more than I. How about you start from a developers, like you know, like
Yeah,
DevOps.
I will give my perspective, which is a software engineer, like that has been trained without AI, and I'll give you, and he'll give us a BA that also vibe codes without software engineering. At its core, the biggest winners of the AI accelerated software movement, which is known as vibe coding, are senior engineers or senior developers exactly for the same reason that we already talked about before. They are the ones that have been through the storms. They understand when code is good and when it's bad, and they have the ability to literally 10x themselves with AI. And they know exactly when hallucinations happen and when things will really cause a problem. What vibe coding is really good at is if you've got a highly trained language, such as Python or TypeScript, this is going into technicals, but just think of any sort of like modern web application or mobile application from the front end. That is so easily automatable. And a good engineer can literally from zero to MVP or zero to prototype, build something within a matter of hours to days, right? And that is awesome. That is like massive acceleration. What it isn't good at currently, and I say currently because I believe in the future this could be potentially solved, is the issues on is it good quality? What is the technical debt? Is it secure? Is it deployable? Is it scalable? And these are the horror stories that you're hearing. Like there's these non-technical people that have vibe coded this whole thing. They're like, we don't need software engineers. Cool. They publish it to the public web. They have no idea how exploitable it is, how broken it is, how unscalable it is. And you've got smart engineers that will exploit that. And one instance, like this dude deployed vibe code his vibe coded application. He deployed it on Twitter, got users to say, hey, I vibe coded this, and now people are paying for it. And then as soon as that happened, some engineers went in, exploited all his API keys, like broke down his entire platform, and he had to shut it down. So this is the things of like the negatives of vibe coding if you don't know what you're doing.
Through the comments, actually, what he was really surprised about, what he said is like people are actually enjoying doing this and they keep on doing this.
But it's a testament of, look, you will be significantly accelerated if you take on AI accelerated workflows, especially with like Cursor or Windsurf or, these other AI code editors. 100%. But whatever gains that you get from accelerating the front end, the easily automatable part, spend that time focusing on the difficult stuff, which is the back end, the databases, the security, all of the stuff that actually can secure your thing for the public use. That is where your time is going to shift. And so, that's my view on vibe coding. It's awesome, but like know where you need to apply your human expertise.
Yeah.
And now you can bring in your technical
Yeah.
VA.
So to Derrick's point, I'm somebody who is not a developer. I totally support his statement. Personally, I would never go into start developing like, some backends because I have no clue what it's about. However, one great application, one practical application that I found was actually, it was relatively easy to use when you needed to come up with some proof of concept, just pretty much like a front end type of application. Right. And this is actually where we're seeing a bit of like growth, right? So for example, some of our clients that we work with, the design teams actually have a strong desire to contribute to that, to that front end code. Means like it actually brings them closer together with like the entire engineering team, and it actually enables them to get to the point where they actually can showcase some of their vision, some of the ideas to the customers quicker. So the whole, like the whole agility of the whole process just becomes so much, faster. And this is where I personally see that for somebody who doesn't know how to code but keen to go on vibe coding, this is a perfect way to actually demonstrate, to practice it, right? So speak to your clients, get the tools to get potential proof of concepts out like relatively quickly, so you can actually get to that MVP stage sooner rather than later. And most importantly, you actually get to connect with your engineering team. With large organizations, we've noticed there's a whole lot of silos. Having this sort of technology actually bridges them. Actually, it connects them. It brings them closer. And as an organization, you can actually work as a one massive collective unit, actually, that works in unison and just delivers on stuff.
100%. I think just to solidify that point, like you know how the saying a picture paints 1,000 words? Well, a demo paints 1,000,000 words. So imagine you have in your stakeholder for whatever you're dealing with, you're like, cool, I'm gonna go with whatever you just told me in this meeting, I'm gonna go and like prototype something. Go and vibe code the heck of that out of that thing. It doesn't matter if it's secure or safe or whatever. You go back to the client the next day and you're like, this is your vision as a demo. Then they're gonna be like, whoa, I'm gonna put in 100K, I'm gonna put in whatever, I'm gonna invest in this. And then whatever investment that you get is actually the time to build it properly. Like that is the
Mm.
power of vibe coding if you do it well. And like ideas to demos, instant.
Yeah.
It's massive. But yeah, don't think you can deploy it without actual real engineering.
Actually, as a matter of fact, don't.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't. Misha says don't.
If you notice, like senior software engineer knowing your shit inside out, unless you want to be the next popular person on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or X, as they call it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it's called these days. Yeah. Oh, that's so good to hear because it is definitely the opposite of, what we're seeing online. Everyone's like, "Oh, you can vibe code this. We don't need junior software engineers and, it's going to take everybody's jobs and stuff." But yeah, amazing that there's still some human expertise needed and the prototyping though, proof of concept, definitely a great usage for it and I can just imagine a whole bunch of teams being really excited of being able to say, okay, this is what it could look like, and then going to the developers and being like, I need you to build this, and that interesting conversation that might happen there. I love that. Now that we are kind of wrapping up this episode, I want to just give you guys a moment to maybe plug Harnex a little bit more, talk about what you guys actually do. Maybe if some of our customers or some of our listeners, I should say, might end up being customers of yours, give it an ad. Say whatever you want.
I reckon you're better at this.
Well, probably just to reiterate, so initially the Harnex started off as an organization to help companies to bring their collective awareness and knowledge of AI up, right? So helping them to leverage AI to improve the productivity, to us is a very important factor. One of the recent things, though, we've discovered it's actually not necessarily the number one thing that drives the AI adoption is a change of the mindset. And this is what at Harnex we're really trying to focus. It's not necessarily about driving the productivity, which is definitely a must, but it's also how do we change the perspective? How do we shift that way of thinking into a more agile and sort of getting people to like execute quicker on things using the AI. Right. And this is pretty much like where it's at the moment. So we're working with quite a few organizations getting to a point where we're actually building stuff for some literally within weeks to the getting things to an MVP stage. And they're seeing the results, seeing the possibilities. And next thing you know, they're getting more hungrier. They're willing to work with these tools. They're willing to explore the whole realm of AI and its possibilities.
Yeah, I think just to point out, if you're so that's like at the core of why I think you should use it. If you're like an exec or like a leader that is like, okay, why do I actually care about this? Fundamentally, generative AI is the once in a generation transformational vehicle that you're going to experience. And I'm going to come from a different, like almost like a, no, I don't want to be fear mongering, but this is like, I think kindness is important over niceness. And I think I'm being kind by like giving this warning to leaders. If you are not adopting generative AI or having this AI mindset to to increase your productivity, decrease your efficiency, increase revenue or like reduce your risk, your competitors are doing it. And you're going to be the BlueBerry that never adopted the smartphone or the Xerox that never adopted the internet. You're going to die. And so our services are there to really help people to get to that stage where like lean startups that are, taking on generative AI from the ground up are able to accelerate infinitely more than you. And I think that's unfair. There's so many great established businesses, so many intelligent people out there that need to learn this properly and move with the times because it's going to be a fight for your role. It's going to be a fight for what is like productive, how it's going to change. And so we want to help transition that instead of you getting rug pulled.
Yeah. And one important thing to also note, it's never about replacing people, it's about augmenting them.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. I think this is the sort of like what we're trying to embed into everyone, right? things are not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
You know, they might even actually, as a matter of fact, sometimes get worse before they get better. You know, it's
So yeah.
and the idea is that like how do we like work collectively and actually get them to a speed where they're now working in this like different paradigm and AI accelerated.
Yeah, that's the future. Yeah, I love. You saw two different takes
Yeah.
on how we sell our services. I'm like, yo, you're gonna die if you don't learn. He's like collective intelligence, increasing, increasing the mindset. I love it.
Well, that's why you
Work
guys
together
work
or
so well
die.
together, right? Yeah. You've
Sorry,
got the opposite sides of the coin, so to speak, and depending on what the company's mindset already is, whichever one of you goes in, one of you will be a good fit. It might not be Derrick, it might not be Misha, but it'll be one of you. Absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on and letting the listeners know a little bit about what's been happening in the world of AI recently. And of course, we are so proud of what you guys have achieved so far with Harnex. And just seeing you go to events, seeing what you've been doing on LinkedIn, you really are, making Flint proud, I want to say. I know Craig will be very excited to catch up with both of you whenever he next sees you to hear about the journey. And a lot of our listeners and people that have met you at events will be so excited to keep up as well. So I'll make sure that there are links to the Harnex AI LinkedIn page, website, all that jazz, as well as maybe links to both of your individual pages if anyone wants to reach out. And thank you so much to everyone listening. Obviously, we love having you on this journey with us as well as we're all learning together. And I'll pass it back to you guys for any final words before we close out the episode.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah.
If you still on a bit of a skeptical side of AI, more than welcome to go to our website. We actually have a maturity assessment that's readily available for anyone to take. You get automated report that you'll get. Strongly recommend just like starting with that. See where it lands.
Yeah, I mean, I just say adopt it. Have a growth mindset. You'll really see the benefits, and I appreciate you, Caitlin. I'm so grateful to see how much you've evolved and grown with FLINT Talks and how it's still progressing. So thank you for having us on. It's our pleasure as well. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. All right, see everybody next month. Hi again, just popping in to let you know about a couple of awesome Flint events we've got coming up. The first is a Flint webinar called Negotiation Skills That Stick. This is being hosted by Zibby, our National Flint lead, who is also a senior manager at Randstad. The event will be all about negotiation skills, what works, what doesn't, and how to show up with confidence, even when your voice shakes. This has been held on Tuesday the 24th of June from 12 to 1 p.m, and we hope to see as many people there as possible. Then we have the Flint Auckland event called The Voice of Leadership. This event is designed to support individuals at the beginning of their leadership journey, whether you're stepping into a leadership role or aspiring to do so. We have a series of engaging speakers as well as facilitated discussions for attendees to explore the real-world challenges of early leadership and gain valuable insights from the speakers as well as each other. This event is happening on Wednesday the 9th of July from 5 till 7 p.m. at the Microsoft building in the Auckland CBD. Both events have already been posted on our LinkedIn page, so check out our recent posts for more detail. Thank you for listening, and be sure to join us next month for another episode of FLINT Talks.